Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with an awesome new knife consult for you on the Chris Reeve Knives Sebenza 31. That's right, the 31 is finally here. It is the newest evolution of the Sebenza line. The Chris Reeve Knives Sebenza has got to be one of the most reviewed knives on YouTube. There are a billion videos about it, and so there's not a whole lot that's new, but there are enough new things that I think it's important that we talk about them. This is a brand new knife. I wanted to say thanks to Blade HQ for getting these in early. I purchased this from them. This was $450 in this plain Jane setup right here, which is in line with their previous pricing. Pretty much the exact same price as it used to be as the 21. This brings some of the evolutions that we saw in the Sebenza 25, the Inkosi, and the Umnumzaan into the Sebenza lineup here. And this is actually my first Sebenza knife that I've ever had in sort of the 21 lineage. I owned a 25. I had a couple of Inkosis. I've handled the Umnumzaan and the 21s before, but I've never owned one before. So this was really nice to finally get one from the true Sebenza lineage in hand to see what it was like. So we're all familiar with the sort of size profile and what the Sebenza is. It is truly a legendary knife. It comes from Chris Reeve Knives, and for your money, you do get some pretty nice packaging. It comes in this large box. The box comes filled with information about the knife, showing that it's a drop point in S35VN with titanium handles. It's going to show you all the different pieces that go along with it. It gives you a little bit of the history of the Chris Reeve Knives brand. It gives you some stickers, as well as some other authorization type stuff. Of course, the Chris Reeve Knives cloth. This is legendary and so great to have. And of course, it comes with the adjustment tool and some silicone lubrication, or fluorinated grease, I should say, not silicone, fluorinated grease. Standard stuff that we've come to expect from Chris Reeve Knives. So you get all the same stuff. This one just has some changes to the actual knife itself. So let's go ahead and get some vital signs on this knife. I got some stuff rolling into the field here. This is the same size as the 21, so you'll be very comfortable to know that the blade is coming in right at about 3.6 inches. Overall, you're at about 8.5 inches, give or take. The handle is coming in just under 5 inches. You're looking at about 4.8 inches on the handle there. The effective grip area is somewhere in the 4.3, 4.4 inch area right there. The weight on the 31 is not going to be significantly different from the previous generations. It does not have any significant internal milling, and it comes in at 4.67 ounces in this plain Jane format right here. So plain Jane means it is the slab-sided, no frills, simple blasted finish with the plain blade with the unilateral thumb stud right here. They offer a lot of different variations, as they did with the 21. They already have unique graphic versions. They have the inlaid micarta versions with double lugs and different colored lugs. But this is the basic model with the blue hardware, the blue lanyard pin, and the plain finishes. So we're going to go ahead and just get a couple of other knife size comparisons. This is about the most useless comparison. If you don't know what a Sebenza is, you probably haven't been watching the channel very long or been into knives very long. But the Sebenza is pretty legendary. It falls in the exact same size category as the Paramilitary 2, although you do get a significant more amount more of cutting edge right there. So let's go ahead and get into the nitty-gritty and talk about what's new on the knife. You're going to keep the same blade right here. There's nothing significantly changed. It still has a nice hollow ground blade with that beautifully done convexed edge from the factory. This one came unbelievably sharp, extremely sharp in S35VN. This is a complaint that some people had. The knife has been in S35VN for a number of years before that S30V. That is very meaningful, honestly, in my estimation, because Chris Reeve back in the day helped with the development of both S30V and later S35VN, certainly more with the S35VN, to make it an excellent cutlery steel. He worked with Crucible in order to give it all the properties that he wanted to have in a blade steel, including excellent corrosion resistance, good toughness, and nice wear resistance. But In 2020, S35VN is getting a little long in the tooth. We know for a fact that there are many more exceptional blade steels available, and it would be nice to see Chris Reeve Knives start making knives in other blade steels. Spyderco has been wildly successful in making their paramilitary 2 and various other lines in various other steels, including Maximet, prompting people, including myself, to buy multiple iterations of the same knife just to have the same knife in different steels. I think that they would find that they would be extremely successful as well if they were to try to do that. You know, a sprint run type situation would be awesome, but just to see them upgrade the steel. It's my understanding that Crucible recently came out with S45VN, which is going to be a slight variation on S35VN. It has a couple of different, couple of minor adjustments to the chemical composition to allow for a little bit better edge retention, supposedly, but we'll see how that plays out. They're not currently producing knives in 45VN, but maybe later this year or into 2021, we will start to see that happen. Again, this has the single-sided thumb stud. It is available with bilateral or both-sided thumb studs right there. Moving back to the pivot, this is where you're going to notice the most significant difference in this knife is in the pivot and locking mechanisms. Inside of the pivot, the washers from the 21 to the 31 have been dramatically increased in size, much along the lines of the Inkosi, where it had very large washers with large pockets inside to hold that fluorinated grease. What that translates to is a very smooth action. The Sebenza has always been known for its extremely smooth action. Not fast. There is a difference between smooth and fast. This has a very hydraulic, very progressive opening and closing, but it is not meant for flicking the knife open. As you can see, I'm not sitting here trying to flick it open because it doesn't really do that very well. It is a nice pivot. If I disengage the lock here, you can see that the blade does drop very freely and very smoothly, and that should give you an indication of what the resistance is really like. It just drops very smoothly, but it's not fast. A lot of people in modern knife collecting find that this Sebenza type action is a little bit unsatisfying. I will say that now with these larger washers, I do enjoy this action as much as the Inkosis and the 25s before it. It has just a little bit of a smoother feel to it. It's hard to put into words. You kind of have to feel both to understand it. But more importantly, for what's changing the feel of the action is the actual lockup and the lock interface. The 31 brings with it the evolutions seen first on the Umnumzaan and later on the Inkosi with the ceramic detent / lock interface. This one features a large ceramic detent ball. Let's see if I can get the light to show it in there. There is a ceramic detent ball fixed to the top of the lock bar right there that functions as the detent when the knife is closed. And then when you open the knife, it is the surface that is in contact with the blade. This is an excellent upgrade in my estimation because engineering-wise, physically, it is better to have a much harder lock face to interact with the blade. It will increase the longevity of your knife. One of the main problems with a hardened steel blade interfacing with a titanium lock bar is that the titanium is significantly softer than the steel, and the steel will cause galling of the titanium, and that will cause over time the lock bar to increase its travel across the lockup. It may also cause issues with lock stability. It may also cause lock stick. Lock stick is where the steel and the titanium are galling in such a way that the titanium becomes irregular and creates a sticky type of surface, and that can be annoying. That did not happen very often with Chris Reeve Knives. As we know, they have been making this same lock system since the very beginning. The Reeve Integral Lock was the very first frame lock type folding knife. He literally invented the thing, and so they really had it down to quite the science. And so it's very cool to see that they have actually improved this interface, adapting with the market in some ways to increase the strength of their lock face to allow for that increased longevity and strength. Now, the elephant in the room is that a lot of the very first models of the 31 had what is known as lock rock, and that is when the knife is locked up and you try to move it back and forth, there is some movement of the blade in an up and down motion on that lock bar. Mine exhibits absolutely none. I'm sitting here torquing on it about as hard as anyone should ever have to torque on a knife blade, and there's absolutely no movement whatsoever. And so I have also spoken to a number of other knife enthusiasts, including knife reviewers, who have obtained a Sebenza 31, and none of their knives have any lock rock. So I wonder if the first run that came out in late 2019 had some fit and finish issues, some prototype / development type issues where maybe things weren't fitted quite the right way. I can tell you this one is as solid as any knife I've ever had at any time. The lockup is excellent. There is no blade play. There is no lock rock, and it is a nice lockup. The lock bar, in true Chris Reeve Knives fashion, travels to about 50% on the lockup. This is something that they believe increases the strength of their lock. I don't particularly mind it. Some people get a little bit anxious and like to see extremely early lockup, but I have no problem with the Chris Reeve philosophy of the 50% lockup. And again, with this ceramic detent interface, it should last a good amount longer. I don't know of many people who use their Sebenza 21s to the point that the lock bar traveled all the way over, but this one should increase the life of that as well. And those are the main changes to the knife. Once we get back to the handle, there are some more minor changes. You're going to notice that there is the absence of the hole on the front scale right here. On the 21 models, forever and ever, they had a small hole in the front side that they used for their machining processes. I thought that that was really unsightly and completely unnecessary, and so I'm glad that they made that small aesthetic change. I really like the way that it looks with this clean front scale. On the back, you're going to notice that the pocket clip is slightly oriented upward. It is now off of the lock bar when the knife is open. This was a small complaint that some people had, that the clip added a small amount of tension onto the lock bar during opening and closing. Now this also serves as a bit of an over travel stop because you get that physical sensation when you touch the clip that you've reached that point for closure. And so I really think that the changes to this knife have been meaningful and have been really excellent. The knife itself has not changed in any dramatic way. It continues to have the Sebenza type action. It continues to have the amazing fit and finish. This one features a blue standoff and the blue lanyard tube. Speaking of the lanyard tube, I have to say that I am a bit disappointed that in this newest iteration, there continues to be a looseness to that lanyard tube. If you can hear it, it's rattling inside of that space right there. I understand that that's how it's designed to be, but I wish that it wasn't, because everything else fits so perfectly on this knife. If you disassemble these knives, it's an amazing experience because everything fits so closely and so tightly. It's almost unlike any other knife on the market right now, and that's why they consistently win the Best Manufacturer award from Blade Magazine. I would have liked to have seen that be changed. Secondarily, I would have liked to see the thumb stud be changed. The thumb stud remains a bit uncomfortable, and in its blue anodized form, as you can see, even after just a few days of ownership, the titanium coloration does wear away, and after a year or so, it basically becomes silver. I do wish that the plain Jane just came with silver accents rather than blue, but this is their very traditional look, and so they're going to stick with it. Chris Reeve Knives has a tried and true formula, and they try to not vary too much from that to keep with their enthusiasts and to keep with their foundation. You're not going to see them create a flipper knife on bearings anytime in the near future, because that's not what they want to do. That's not the mission of their knife. I have to say last year at Blade Show 2019 when they debuted the 31, I was rather negative about the release of the knife. I made an Instagram post that was a little bit inflammatory, and it just so happened that I ran into Tim Reeve and got to meet him at that Blade Show. Tim, being a fan of my podcast that I did previously, the Knife Life podcast, expressed extreme disappointment in my post, and it made me feel quite bad. I actually shared a beer with him and Bill Koenig and Krista Koenig, and we talked it out, and I felt really ashamed of myself for being so negative. I have since really changed my social media platform to be much more positive and much less negative. And I recognize the struggle that Tim had in upgrading a legendary knife like the Sebenza, and that it was necessary to remain true to its original format with this at the same time bringing some meaningful changes to the knife. And I think that they've really done that. It remains largely the same knife. You're going to get the same excellent performance out of it, the same longevity, and the same excellent fit and finish. But now it's been brought into the 21st century with, well, I should say the 2020s, with some of the more meaningful upgrades with the ceramic detent, the washers, and the clip change. Let's hope that the Sebenza 41 sees some upgrades in the steel, a change to the thumb stud, and a change to the lanyard tube. Those are the only minor criticisms that I have of the knife. The lanyard tube can be removed. The thumb studs can be exchanged if you choose to do that. And otherwise, it'd be basically a perfect knife. This is basically the perfect EDC knife, and it continues to be now. So let me know what you guys think of the Sebenza 31 down below. Leave some comments. Let's talk about it. Click like and subscribe to my channel here if you enjoyed this video. Head over to Instagram and follow me at Dr. Frunkey. And as always, guys, take care.